Okay, this is going to be a brief live because I'm using it to demonstrate the rim pivot cuts that I use. And I'm going to do it twice. And I thought these strainer spoons would be a good thing to show it on because they're so wide. It gives me lots of room and space to show these particular cuts to you guys. So the very particular cuts, I'm going to break it down for you. So remember, within the spoon blank here, all the grain is flowing in this direction down into the deepest point. On the top, it's flowing down from both ends. And so you need to cut it this way and this way. When you're doing the end of the handle, that's very straightforward. But doing the rim cuts this way, while you can, do it in a pull stroke towards yourself, particularly for long spoons. Not only do you not have much control, but it also can be dangerous because you're pulling towards yourself and the power is going towards yourself. So this is why I do rim pivot cuts instead. So they're a bit weird. Let me break it down. These two fingers go here. This finger goes here, but under the side. You don't want it sticking up. You want it under the side like this. And then these fingers come in here, and you're going to hold the blade with the edge towards yourself like this. Make sure that's nice and firmly planted in your sternum so it can't move. And then you're going to, I'm going to move so that you can see what my knife elbow is doing. So my knife elbow is actually coming out, and you can see how it's being held here. And these are actually off to the side so that I can get the very tip a little bit. And then I'll sort of shift them around to help support it as I get to the side here. But it's being pushed out is what's pushing the knife in. I'm not pulling towards myself. It's a pivot. So this is actually changing the force, which is going out, and it's changing it so that the blade edge is coming in like that. So pivot out to make the edge of the blade come in like that. Now, as long as you haven't lined up your deepest part with your widest part, you should be able to go all the way around to the neck on this side. And the nice thing about this is that you can really see the line that you're cutting. So again, watch that. It's going, my elbow is going out. I'm putting force out, and the pivot is turning it so that the blade can actually go around like this. Now, this is where having a 106 at least is going to help you, because that extra length is needed, you can see, to get around larger rims. If you only have a more 120 or another shorter knife, you're going to struggle with that. So also notice that I'm doing it in a series of cuts. I'm not trying to get that perfect line right off the bat. And the key is that unlike a pull cut where I'm trying to keep my elbow in to keep myself safe, here I deliberately want my elbow to be going out so that it can pivot away from me. So all right, I'm gonna do all of one and then all of the others that you get to come back to again. So here's the other cut to get the other side. And the reason I'm doing this in live is because it magically changes me into a righty, which I think will be more helpful for you guys than if I do it in a video where you'd have to look at me as a lefty, which is what I am. Okay, so you hold it like this, and then you jam the end of the bowl into your thumb like this. Obviously, you can see that the larger the spoon bowl, sort of, that you are going to hit a limit where you can't get past a certain point. So you hold it like this, and then you jam it into your leg like that. Now this thumb comes up, and that forms the pivot point. So again, it's a pivot. So you can see how what's actually happening is I'm pulling back, and it's pivoting on my thumb here. So I'm not pushing at all. If you push, you're going to cut this finger that's sticking up here. You're pulling back, and that's pivoting it around. The nice thing about a pivot cut is that you can stop it at any moment, because the force is not being applied in the direction that the blade is moving. All right, you want to check for evenness of your rim. Now, when you get to this point, it's no longer safe because your finger's sticking up. It's not really on this big of a spoon, but on smaller spoons it is. So then you shift this finger around to underneath here, and you hold it like this, like you're a kid pretending it's a gun. But you continue to use this tip of this thumb as a pivot like this. I had a student the other day who did this. I think you want to keep the pivot cleanly on the thumb that's holding the spoon. And you can see it's still a pivot. It's still, the force is all coming from pivoting the blade like that. And again, if you've laid out your spoon so that the widest part doesn't line up with the deepest part, you should be able to carve all the way around the rim right to the neck, and that's where your grain change is going to happen. So there you have it, rim pivot cuts. Let's do that again. So first rim pivot cut, you have your 2 fingers. If you only use 1 finger, it's a little wobbly, so 2 really helps. And then the thumb is back here. The reason you want your thumb back here is it gives you something to press down into, because you're leaning the blade down into this. If your thumb was really tucked out of the way, then the whole spoon would pivot, be more tippy. But you don't want your thumb up like this because the blade needs to come down. So press it into your sternum nice and tight. And notice how I sort of cheat these fingers over to the side to allow me to get to that first bit. And I'm coming at this at a very shallow angle, right? I don't need to carve all the way across the spoon bowl. That's going to happen with the hook knife. All that material is going to get removed with a hook knife. So really the goal here is to simply establish the line of the rim. And it's gonna, I basically do these cuts 3 separate times when I'm carving. I do it right now when I'm roughing out. I do it later once I've redrawn the outline and I'm sweetening things up. I'll do it again, and then I'll do it a 3rd time once I've roughly hollowed out the spoon bowl. I'll do it one last time to really push that rim down to level instead of having it be slightly angled up like this. And that last time is really improves the quality of my spoon, so it's worth doing even if you feel like it's a pain in the neck. So there we go. Rim pivot cut like that. Now the second rim pivot cut, you hold it like this. You brace it really against the back of your thumb. You don't want to have it like here because, again, you need your thumb to be sticking out so that you can adjust where that, where the pivot of the knife is. Because sometimes it makes sense to have it here. Sometimes it makes sense to have it in tight here, like when I'm starting out. And then I'll adjust it so that it goes further out. So you really want the tip of the spoon to be jammed right in here at the base of your thumb. That's important. And I didn't show you first, but I like to start off with it pressed against my leg here because it helps stabilize the whole thing, and it helps when you got your your thumb cheated over to the side so that you can get that center bit. It helps to have a 3rd point of contact. So you're pressing with the blade, you're pressing back with this, and it's helpful to have it pressing into your leg as well. And once you've done that, when I get to this part, I tend to lift it up like that. These pivot cuts are the weirdest part of the whole process, and they're the most awkward for most people, but they really do make it possible to achieve exactly the line that you want swiftly and easily, and to readjust it whenever you need to. So I would highly recommend that you take some time, nice, just repetitive. You don't even need to be actually cutting. Just practice making these cuts, doing exactly what I'm doing over and over again without even actually cutting anything. Just, practice making the motion until you feel really comfortable doing it. It's those motions. And remember, the key is that the force is going out, and that's pivoting the blade in. You are not pulling towards yourself. You're pushing out, and that pivots the blade in because you're pivoting on these pivot points, either here or in this one. You're pulling back, and that's pivoting the blade that way. You're not pushing this way. You're pivoting the blade, and that way you can stop on a dime. Thanks for watching, guys.